In the Canadian woods, a family encounters a strange creature outside their home. Two young boys see something unimaginable at Navajo Mountain, and a solar camper is tested beyond fear in the middle of the night. This evening, we delve into three tales that are believed to be Skinwalker related. I'm Angie, your maid in the dark. Please listen with care. We lived in a cabin in the Canadian woods for almost 10 years. A life cut from quieter cloth. My wife and my two kids and I, we carved out our own little corner of the world, far from the noise and crawl of cities. No roads led to our home, just miles of forest, a few trails worn thin by time, and the occasional neighbor's path winding like veins through the trees. We weren't totally alone, not exactly. There were maybe half a dozen families scattered within a 5-mile radius. We'd trade vegetables, have the odd dinner together. It was a sort of life that breathed at its own pace. Days spent tending to our small patch of farmland, evenings by firelight. We had vegetables, chickens, a couple of dairy cows. Peace. And then, one night, that peace broke. It was late, too late for the cattle to be up. I was in the living room, sunk into my usual spot with a book in hand. Everything was quiet, except for the pages turning. That kind of silence that settles on the world like a woolen blanket. But then I heard them, the cows. Not mooing, panicking. Their hooves, thundering, frantic, kicking up the earth outside. I set my book down and went to the window, gently peeling the curtain back. They were all huddled to the far left side of the field, pressed together, moving in confused circles, like they were running from something. But there was nothing there. Not at first. My eyes had to adjust. The woods to the right were nothing but a blur of black shapes. But then, I saw it. A figure, partially hidden behind a tree. A deer. Or I thought it was a deer. It was standing unnaturally still, facing the house. Not grazing, not sniffing. Just staring. I couldn't tell if it was looking right at me, but it felt like it. There was something too sharp about it, something heavy in the way it held its posture. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was nothing. The cattle were just spooked. A coyote, maybe. And a deer? Harmless. So I let the curtain fall back into place and returned to my book. But I didn't read another word. Weeks passed. Then came the second night, the worst one. It was my wife who woke me. I remember her hands on my shoulder, gently shaking. Her voice was low, barely a whisper. Something's outside. I blinked awake, my thoughts still thick with sleep. What is it? I mumbled. Just listen. Her eyes told me she'd been awake for a while, not just scared, rattled. So I listened. At first, nothing. Then, faint but distinct, a sound. Something dragging along the outside wall of our cabin. Slow, scraping. Like someone taking a long stick and tracing the outer edges of our home. It moved steadily, dragging around the corners, completing a full circle. Then silence. I got out of bed, my body subtly alert, checked the kids' rooms first. They were fine, asleep, oblivious. Then I grabbed the rifle from beside the front door. I crept from window to window, parting the curtains, one by one. Nothing. Until the bedroom window. It was there again. The deer. Just past the tree line, standing still as stone, watching, always watching. But this time, I could see more. Its body looked wrong. Its legs were just a bit too long. Its torso too narrow, like it had been stitched together from memory, but not quite finished. And its eyes. Oh God, its eyes. They caught the moonlight and shimmered in a way deer eyes shouldn't. I could see white. And the pupils, too small, human. I stepped back from the window and let the curtain fall. A dread set in, cold and heavy. I couldn't explain it. I'd never seen an animal behave like that, never felt anything like that. It wasn't just fear. It was that creeping sense that something had noticed us, something that shouldn't have. The next morning, I told my wife to lock the doors and keep the kids inside. I needed to see if the neighbors had experienced anything strange. I needed someone else to tell me they'd seen it too, that it wasn't just in my head. I set out on one of the narrow trails that linked our homes, crunching through frostbitten leaves, thinking through every possibility. A predator, a prank, some weird natural behavior, something logical, something I could name. But the longer I walked, the more wrong it all felt. Halfway to my neighbors, it happened again. That feeling, like the woods had shifted, like every tree around me had started to lean in, just a little, staring. Then the rustle. Behind me. I turned, and there it was, closer than ever. Maybe 15, 20 feet away, standing directly on the trail. Not hiding this time. No trees, no shadows. Its eyes locked to mine. I stopped breathing. I didn't move, and neither did it. Only now I could see, and I mean really see, that the thing wasn't right. Its head twitched, slightly too fast. Its legs bent subtly wrong, and those eyes. There was a severeness in them, intelligence. They were looking through me. That was the moment I ran. I tore through the woods like a child, my boots slipping in the leaves, my breath ragged and panicked. I didn't stop until I slammed my fists on my neighbor's door. Thank God, he was home. He let me in, sat me down and gave me water, tried to calm me. He could see it in my face. Something had broken me. I told him everything. And when I finished, he didn't laugh. He didn't ask me if I was sure. He just looked tired, worried. Then he told me something I wish I could forget. He said that there are things in the woods, old things, ones that wear skins and mock voices. He called them skinwalkers. Said they only show themselves when they want something or when they've been disturbed. I asked him what that meant. Disturbed how? He didn't answer. Just looked out the window for a long time. I left not long after. The walk back was mercifully quiet, but everything had changed. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate. I'd stare out the windows at night, waiting, listening. Eventually, the sound stopped. No more dragging sticks. No more movement in the woods. No more deer. But the peace, our peace, was gone. We moved closer to town the next year. Told ourselves it was for the kids. Better schools, more opportunities. And maybe that was part of it. But I know the real reason. I knew we weren't safe anymore. It's been nearly 15 years. My kids are grown now. My wife thinks it was just a weird run-in with a wild animal. She's never asked why we never went back. Why I still leave the porch light on every night, even in suburbia. I've never told her, and I don't think I ever will. But sometimes, even now, I'll wake up in the dead of night, and I swear I can hear it again. That dragging sound. That slow, steady scrape. Just one circle, and then silence. I don't know if I believe in anything. Not really. Ghosts, myths, skinwalkers. I was raised to think that the world is made up of facts and proof and measurable things. But then there's this story. A story that doesn't fit in the world of facts. One my father told me in whispers. One he never wanted to share. Not really. And it still gives me goosebumps just to repeat it. You see, my family once lived on the reservation. My grandmother was a teacher out there in the 80s, a white woman, a stranger to the land, hired to teach children of a culture not of her own. She brought my father and my uncle with her, two young white boys, maybe 10 and 8 at the time, to live in a place called Navajo Mountain. They were outsiders, and they knew it. The people were kind enough, but there was always something withheld, a silence that settled between sentences, a kind of sacred reserve that you couldn't touch, and maybe for good reason. My dad and uncle didn't notice anything at first. They were just kids. They rode bikes with the local boys, zipped through the dirt trails, climbed the rocky outcrops, shouted into canyons just to hear their own echoes. It was a childhood carved out of wild freedom, unbothered, untethered, unnoticed. And their mother, my grandmother, she was recovering from her own trauma. An abusive man left in the past, a new beginning on a land not hers. She let the boys run wild, and they did, until the night they saw it. That night, the world changed. It was colder than it should have been, they said. Not desert cold. Not the usual dry chill of nighttime, but something more ancient. The kind of cold that makes you feel like you've been buried. The kind that clings to your bones. The sky was black. It was as if the stars had fled. No light, no moon, no wind. Just darkness pressing in from every side. The boys were racing bikes again, tearing through the dirt path like they always did, laughing, screaming, innocent. Then, all at once, they stopped. Brakes screeched in the silence. Tires kicked up dust, but no one spoke. They were all staring in the same direction. To their right stood the mesa, the one they passed daily, the one they could see from the bedroom window every night before they closed their eyes. But this night, the mesa was different. There was a fire. Not a campfire, not a bonfire, but a towering inferno that reached up into the sky like it was trying to burn a hole in the heavens. It roared without wind. No crackle, no smoke, just an impossible blaze dancing silently on the flat top of that mesa. And around it, something moved. A figure. Or several, they weren't sure. Blacker than the night itself. It cavorted, it leapt, and contorted in ways that bones should never bend. It danced. Yes, but not in joy. There was no rhythm, no music. Only the grotesque parody of movement. My father and uncle looked to their friends, native boys from the reservation, expecting an explanation, a laugh, a name. But their faces, they had gone pale and silent. Without a word, those boys turned their bikes and bolted away. They didn't shout goodbye. They didn't wait for my dad and uncle. They simply disappeared into the night. My father says that they ran too, dropped their bikes where they stood and sprinted across the road into their house, slamming the door behind them, gasping for breath like the darkness had nearly drowned them. They told my grandmother everything, of course, or tried to. But she only scoffed, waved them off with a tired smile. A legend, she said, a story the locals tell. Don't worry yourselves. She sipped her coffee, read her newspaper. But they didn't sleep that night, not even a wink. The curtains were pulled as tight as they could be. The stars had returned, but they didn't care. My father says the image of that fire still burned in his head, like it had seared itself into the walls of his memory. And when morning came, the sunlight didn't comfort them. It just made everything feel wrong, like they'd stepped into a version of the world that pretended everything was fine, but wasn't, not even close. They tried again to explain to their mother, to put words to what they saw, but the words didn't work. How could they? How do you explain a ritual no one should have seen, on a land that doesn't belong to you, involving something you don't even know the name for? And again, she brushed them off, told them to climb the mesa. Investigate, she said, as if this was some curious mystery, not a living nightmare. So they did. They found the boys from the night before, the ones who'd run, and called out to them as they rode past. But the boys didn't follow. They stayed on the road and stared. My dad and uncle climbed the mesa alone. It wasn't high, no more than the height of a house. They reached the top in minutes. And when they did, there was nothing. No ashes, no scorch marks, no broken ground. Not a single sign that anything had burned there, not even a footprint in the dust. My dad said that should have made him feel better, but it didn't. It made it worse. Because they knew what they had seen. Fire that reached the sky. A figure, a thing, that danced in impossible shapes. The way the world held its breath, the way the land had fallen silent in fear. They climbed back down, told their friends what they found, or what they didn't. But the native boys said nothing. They just turned and rode away again. No one ever talked about it after that. Not the kids, not the grandmother, not the community. Not until years later. I asked my dad about it once, when I was older. He's not a superstitious man and laughs at UFO documentaries. But when I brought it up, when I said the word Skinwalker, he changed. All the color drained from his face. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't answer for a long time. And when he did, it was only to say, I know what I saw. In 2019, my grandmother brought me back there. back to Navajo Mountain. She wanted me to see it. The land, the people, the place that had shaped part of our family's history. A place both beautiful and distant. Not much had changed, she said. And she was right, but something about it felt off to me. I can't explain it. Not the people. They were gracious, kind. But the land itself felt heavy, as though it was watching me, measuring me, waiting to see if I would overstep. And of course, I climbed the mesa, the same one. At first it was just a rock, silent, still. But when I got to the top, when I stood exactly where the fire had raged, something shifted. I felt it in my gut, in the marrow of my bones. A coldness that didn't belong in the sun. A pressure behind my eyes. A shadow in the edge of my thoughts. Like something was just behind me, smiling. I didn't see anything, but I felt it. I carried that feeling back down with me, and if I'm honest, it's still with me. I haven't been the same since. I don't expect anyone to believe this story. I'm not even sure if I believe it. But if you've lived there, if you know Navajo Mountain, maybe you felt it too. And maybe you've seen something you weren't meant to see, just like my father. I should have trusted my gut. I know. Everyone says that after something bad happens, it's like some magical sixth sense. But I mean it. It's ingrained into the back of my mind, circling like a vulture every time I replay that night. I can't shake the feeling. If I had trusted my instincts, maybe I wouldn't have stepped into those woods, wouldn't have pitched my tent beneath those gnarled trees that stood too still, wouldn't have woken up to find something watching me, its eyes hidden just beyond the firelight, too still to be human. But I was arrogant, stubborn, a purist, you could say. I didn't want some campground with cute little fire pits and chirpy families making s'mores. I craved isolation, real wilderness, the kind of silence so complete you start to feel like you're the last thing alive. So that October evening, I found this forgotten service road on the edge of the state park. The thing was practically swallowed by brush, damn near missed it. According to the map, it ran 5 miles into the forest and then just stopped. No trailheads, no cabins, just an ocean of green, perfectly remote. I parked the truck under a canopy of shadow, slung my pack over my shoulder, and set out as the sun bled across the sky. Orange first, then that weird purple that never looks natural. The woods seemed to lean in as I walked, like they were trying to get a better look at me. By the time I reached a dry creek bed, night had settled in, silent, cold, and with teeth. I set up camp fast, like I was racing against something I couldn't name. You ever feel that? That sudden urgency for no reason? Anyway, I got the fire going. Or tried to. It didn't want to catch. Took me longer than it should have. And when the flames finally crawled to life, the light didn't spread right. Normally, fire pushes back the dark. But here, it just sort of puddled in the middle and stopped, like the shadows were soaking it up, smothering. I roasted a hot dog on a stick, very rustic of me, washed it down with a swig of cheap whiskey, and tried to enjoy the solitude. Tried. But the quiet was wrong. Not peaceful. No owls, no insects, nothing. Just the sound of my own chewing and the fire popping like it didn't want to be there either. Then I heard it. Crunch. I froze mid-swallow. At first I thought, wind. A branch maybe. But the air was still. And it came again. Slow and careful. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. Deliberate. Not the scatter of a raccoon or the clumsy stomp of a deer. This was measured. A predator's pace. I turned toward the dark, flashlight in hand, but there was nothing. Just trees. Lots of trees. And that horrible blackness between them that seemed too thick to be natural. I told myself it was a deer anyway. Had to be. And even said it out loud, like maybe that would make it true. Probably a deer. My voice cracked a bit, not proud of that. Eventually, the sound stopped. Or maybe I just stopped noticing them. Either way, I put out the fire, crawled into my tent, and zipped it up tight like that 0.5 millimeter of nylon could protect me from whatever. Sleep did not come easily. Every time I started to drift, I heard something. A twig snap, a low shuffling. Once, I heard breathing, long and low, like someone was lying just outside, listening to my breath and trying to match it. But each time I sat up, heart thudding like a drum in my throat, there was nothing. Just a soft hiss of the wind, pretending to be innocent. Eventually, exhaustion won. I passed out, dreamless and shallow. But then I woke again. Not from a noise, but from a feeling. You know that sensation? The one that slithers up the back of your neck when someone's behind you. That invisible prickle that tightens your scalp and dries out your mouth. That's what woke me. I sat up, real slow, ears straining, and I heard it. Something moved just outside the tent. Not randomly, not like a squirrel twitching around. This was purposeful, a drag of something across the ground. Then a pause, like it knew I was awake. I reached for my flashlight, clicked it on, held it to the tent wall. The beam stretched the shadows like taffy, and then there it was, a silhouette. Tall, too tall, broader than any man I've ever met, but all wrong. Crooked in the shoulders, and its head, it was tilted. Just slightly, like it was curious. I stopped breathing. I didn't dare. It leaned in, closer. And then it spoke. Hey, you awake? No. That wasn't right. It wasn't a whisper, but it wasn't loud either. The voice didn't travel the way sound should. It just appeared, flat and toneless. Not to mention, it was my voice. Hey, you awake? It said again. The same words, the same pitch, but not human. Like someone trying to mimic me, but getting it just slightly wrong. Like a child learning how to speak by watching a puppet. I bit my tongue, literally, to keep from responding. Every muscle in my body begged to move, to scream, to run. But I stayed still. I had the overwhelming feeling that if I answered, if I acknowledged it, I wouldn't be the one waking up in the morning. The thing stayed there for a long time, hours maybe, or seconds stretched to years. Eventually, the silhouette slid away from the fabric, slow and smooth, and didn't return. I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling of the tent, feeling my body tremble against the cold and trying not to think. When dawn finally arrived, it didn't feel like salvation. The sunlight was pale, anemic. But the birds were back. The frost was melting. The forest looked normal. Almost like it was trying to gaslight me. I dared to unzip the tent. Everything was where I left it. Fire pit, log seat, empty whiskey flask. Nothing disturbed. Until I looked closer. Footprints, all around the fire pit, circling it. Bare footprints. No boot treads, no animal prints. Human feet, but too long and narrow, pressed deep into the earth as if the thing was heavy. And the toes, they were all pointed forward, not a single sign of a limp or a stagger, just a perfect, clean loop around my sleeping body. Then they led away, off into the forest. I didn't follow them. I packed my gear in under 5 minutes, didn't even bother dousing the coals. I just left, got in my truck and drove until I hit bitumen. I haven't been back since. But every once in a while, usually just before I fall asleep, I hear it. That voice. My voice. Hey, you awake? And sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd answered. Thank you for staying in the dark with me. There's plenty more where that came from. For more scary stories, please consider subscribing and viewing more content on my channel. Until next time.